mentors. All right. So just let me know when you start seeing my screen. All right. So are you guys seeing my screen? All right, beautiful. So last class, all right. Look at me. I wanted to say last week. Sorry, not last week. Last class, that was on Tuesday. We started with introduction to JavaScript, all right, where we looked at various things like variables, like operators, and we also did some more like an assessment, all right, like some practice questions. So today we'll be looking at control flows, and under control flows, we'll be looking at conditionals and loops. Now, just like what I said in the last class, everything you are being taught in JavaScript, make sure you practice it and know it very well. The reason is that the same thing we are teaching you in JavaScript is also applicable to every other programming language that you know. The only difference is the syntax, all right? Because if you look at it, syntax is what distinguish a language, one language from another. That's why in your HTML you have a different syntax. Your CSS has its own syntax, and then your JavaScript too has its own. But the concept behind it, variables, and all of that, they are the same, all right? So now we'll start by looking at conditionals. Now, okay, what are even control flows? Now, control flows, also known as control structure. So now what these control flows does, just imagine you have bucket of water, right? And then you are trying to make the water inside the bucket to flow to a particular direction. There's a way you need to dig a ground to like create a road or a path on the ground. In such a way, once you pour the water, it's going to follow that particular hole. And just like how you have your drainage. You understand? If you have a road that has a drainage, you find out that when rain is falling, the water will always flow down through the drainage, right? Why? Because there's a road for the water to flow. So that is what control flow is. Control flow in JavaScript is more like the way you structure your code, the way you instruct your computer to do something. Because programming is you instructing your computer to do something. So it's the manner at which you make your computer to do something. So that is what control flow in plain language is. Understand? Yeah. So now in JavaScript, there are four different kinds of control flows, although it's not limited to this because even the programming languages they evolve over time. So, but for now, there are four major control flows in JavaScript. And the first one is the conditional statements. The second one is loops. The third one is jump statements, and the fourth one is exception handling. Now, let's look at the first one, conditional statement. Now, conditional statements, right? They are used to run different part of your code based on the condition you assign to it. So it's more like in a situation where you say if okay, it's almost month end, all right. So for those of us that are students and even salary earners, I guess some of us in some days time we should be expecting our salary, all right. So in a way, let's say you want to build a program, right? You cannot decide, okay, I want to go to the market, but I don't have money. So it means for me to go to the market, I have to have money. And for me to have money, I need to wait until they pay me my salary. So I cannot decide to say, I will go to the market if and only if I have the money to buy what I want to buy. So this is more like a simple English statement of using conditional, right? Using conditional in a simple English statement. Or for some of us that were growing up and then our parents were like, if you carry first, we'll buy you a bicycle. So it's a conditional statement, right? They will buy you a bicycle only if you're able to carry first position. All right. That's why if I know some of us will still took the first position, there was no bicycle. Anyways, so just now under conditional statement, we have if statement, we have the else statement, we have the else if statement, and we have the switch statement. All right. So now let's look at them one after the other. So for the if statement now, all right. Now, if you remember that our last class, we talk about booleans, right? And we say booleans, they are either true or false. That's the two values of a boolean. And then we also talk about comparison statement, all right? And comparison statement, we say it checks, or those statements check whether something is true, all right, or is false. Do you get? So if statement now is used to check for true, is used to check for the true part of your code. So if something is true, your if statement will always be responsible for it. So now let's look at this code snippet we have here on our slide. It says if 5 is greater than 2, console.log 5 is greater than 2. Now, is 5 greater than 2? Yes, 5 is greater than 2. That means this comparison of greater than is going to return true for us. And since it's returning true, remember what I say, the if statement is used to check for true condition. So once he done check and he said that 5 is actually greater than 2, the next thing is that he's going to execute or run this block of code that is inside the if statement. So that is simply what if statement do. So if let's experiment a little bit. So I hope you guys are all seeing my screen. Okay, beautiful. And I hope you guys are comfortable with the dark mode, because I know sometimes some people used to say they are not, they prefer light mode, and some, and so okay, I think we are all comfortable with it. So we can say let x, remember we talked about declaring variables, right? So let me increase the font a little. Okay, so we can say let x is equal to 5, right? And then we can now say let y is equal to 3. So now using our if statement, remember we say our if statement checks whether a condition is true or false. So now we'll start with if, then inside the bracket we now say x. Now we are trying to check whether x is greater than y, right? And then we open our block of code of the if statement. Now we now say okay, console.log, right? Now we are going to use let's make use of our string literal. Let's start using our string literal. So we now say our x is greater than our y. So now if you look at it, what do we do here? What we simply did was to declare a variable x and y, and give the variable x a value of 5, give the variable y a value of 3. All right. Then what we have here is that we are now checking, okay, is x greater than y using our comparison operator. Remember our comparison operator. So obviously x is 5, y is 3, and of course 5 is greater than 3. So since 5 is greater than 3, what we are expecting here is true. So since this one is going to return true, of course anything inside of the if block, sorry, is going to be executed. And that's why we have this being executed, which is what 5 is greater than 3. So I think we talked a little bit about string literal yesterday, sorry, on Tuesday. So string literal, now why I use this is because I wanted to get the exact value of x and the exact value of y. So for you to get the exact value of x and y, you just have to put it inside this string literal. Now this thing is called a tilde, this symbol here. So you open and close your tilde. Then inside your tilde, any value that you want to take from where the actual value is being defined or declared, right? You always insert it inside dollar and this two curly braces or brackets, as the case may be. All right. So I see Rufai raising up his hand. So please ask your question.
Yeah, sorry, I actually wanted to ask about the screen literal that you just mentioned, but you've explained it now.
Oh, okay, yeah. So just like I said, going forward, we'll be making use of the string literal because it's very, very important, so that we all get used to it. So, is there any other question concerning the if statement? All right. So now let's go on. Now the next one we have is our else statement. All right. So now in your conditional, remember we say the if statement tests for if something is true. Now the else statement tests for opposite of if statement. So what does that mean? It means the else statement tests for what if is not testing. So if we are testing true for if, else statement will now help us in the aspect or in a situation where that particular statement is not actually true. So that's where our else statement comes into scope. So looking at this code snippet we have here now, it says if 5 is less than 2, console.log 5 is greater than 2. All right. Else, forget about this code snippet is just an example, and this console log statement is actually wrong, but no problem. So else, so now what this one is going to do, it will check, is 5 less than 2? No. Of course, obviously 5 is not less than 2, 5 is greater than 2. So it means this block of code will not be executed. So until when we now add an else, so the else now will not be the one to now test for when this condition is not true. So for this particular code snippet, what we are going to be expecting is 2 is less than 5. Why? Because this statement is not true. So since it's not true, f cannot execute it. So now let's go back to our example and then see what we have here. Now let's say, for instance, we change this greater than to less than. Sorry, we change it to less than. So now, do you see that nothing, we are not having anything displayed? Why? Because actually, if you say x is less than y, it's not true, because x is 5 and y is 3. So saying 5 is less than 3 is not true. So since it's not true, all right, it simply means that this if block cannot be executed. So that is where our else now comes in. So for that, we can ask, okay, else. This else now is more like, okay, in case this statement, oh, this condition in if statement, in case is not correct, to me, I want to now work. So now we can now say, okay, we now say, okay, console dot log. All right. Of course, I said we always make use of our string literal, and then we say x is, okay, yes, x is greater than y. So let's use this. So now what do you see? You can see that the statement in our else now has been executed, right? So that is the use of our else statement. So where if checks for whether a value is true, else checks for the opposite. So do you guys get it? Are there any question? Is there any question? All right. So I think we can go on. So that is else statement. Now the next one we have is our
Hello,
else.
morning.
Yes, morning.
Please, sorry, can you take it again, please?
Okay, is it from the else or the if statement?
Uh, from the hell else.
Else, okay, no problem. All right, so for the else statement, just like I said, the else statement, all right, the if statement checks whether a condition is true. So whenever a condition is true, you always have the block of code of the if statement executed. But what if, imagine a situation where the condition we are testing using the if is not true? That's where we now need the else statement to help us. All right. So whereas the if checks for a true value, the else checks for the false value in case the condition is not true. Your else statement will take over. So that was why when at first, this is our block, this is our code, right? We had something like this where we say x is greater than y. Of course, x here is 5, y is 3. And if you look at it, numerically 5 is greater than 3. All right, so this statement is true. That is why this our f is being executed. Now imagine a situation where we now change this greater than to less than. Now from this condition, you should know that this condition is going to return as false. In fact, you can even try it. You can even try it here. X less than y. You can see is a false condition. So because this condition is false, because x is not less than y, x is greater than y. So this if statement will not be executed because it's a false statement. The if statement only executes a true statement. So for that now, all right, we need the else statement. So that's where the else statement now comes in. So for the else statement now, of course, x is not less than y. So we are certainly going to say console dot log, right? We use string lateral and we say x is not less than y. All right. So you can see that here, because this statement is false, is our if statement that is now executed, our else statement, sorry, and not our if statement. So are you okay? All right. So can we go on? Okay. Please, I'm listening.
I said yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So let's go on. All right. Now we have our else if statement.
Sorry, I have a question, please.
Okay, please go on.
Yeah. Is it compulsory we should use the screen literal one? Then the second thing is that while declaring our this thing console.log, must
Yes.
we write that must we write is greater than, must we write it in words, or can we also use the sign also?
Okay. Number one is not by force. It's not necessary to use your string literal, right? You can also use string concatenation. All right, that's one. Okay, let's do an example. For instance, let me change this to a string concatenation. So for this one now, what I'm going to have here is I'm going to have my I'm going to have my x, then plus is not less than, I'll remove this one, and then I'm going to have my y. So you can use concatenation where your normal variable, you make sure you leave it, you don't put it inside your quotation. The other words that are not variable can be put inside quotation, but your normal variable x and y should be out of that quotation, and then you should combine it using your plus sign. So that's what is called concatenation. So you can do this. All right. Then another this thing you can do, you can use again. I don't know if it works with JavaScript, but obviously it's programming, so we can always try. If it doesn't work, we know that it doesn't work. If it works, we know that it works. So let's see if it's going to work. So it didn't work. Yeah. So just put it at the back of your mind. For Python and Rust, it works actually. Python, Rust, but it seems JavaScript. So either use string literal or use string concatenation. Yes. So take note. And then your second question, please, can you come again?
Yeah, I said is greater than. Is it compulsory to write it in words, or just can we just use the sign also
Okay.
in our
Yeah, it's not
in our consequence?
okay. It's not really compulsory to write it in words. You understand? You can decide to just come here and just use your normal this the symbol. All right. So by the time we change this one to greater than, we can see 5 is greater than 3. So you mustn't like put it in words.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right. So let's go on. So else if statement, saying the conditional statement. Now, else if checks, because there are situations where we are not checking for just one condition. Let's say we are checking for more than one condition. So in that situation now, we need to use if statement more than once, right? So let's say now we are checking for, is today sunny, is today rainy, am I going to the market? So I can simply say if today is sunny, I want to do this. If today is rainy, I want to do this. Let's say if the day is sunny, I want to sleep. If the day is rainy, I want to go play in the rain. And if they pay me salary, I want to go to the market. So you see, we are checking for three things in this case. So in this situation now, we need something, because if just check for one condition, whether that condition is true. But now we are trying to check for more than one condition. So that is where else if comes into play. Although you can always make use of multiple if statements, we'll still look at that using multiple if statement and using else if statement. All right. So in a situation where you can use else if statement, you can use multiple if statement. So let's look at this one, what we have here. So you can see let x is 5. They declare 5 here. And then here they are checking if x is equal to 2. All right. So if x is equal to 2, they are saying you should print x is 2. And if x, so you see they are not using else if, because they still want to check whether x is still 5. They are checking between 2 and 5. And if x is not equal to 5, they are now saying okay, shows that x is 5. Then in a situation where the number is neither 2 nor 5, it should tell us what? X is unknown. You understand? So if you look at this one now, we are checking for two things: if x is 2 or if x is 5. Then in a situation where x is neither 2 nor 5, it should just tell us that x is unknown. All right, so we can do this. So let's go to our code, right? So now let's say let x equal to let's say 7. All right, and then let's say let y sorry let y equal to 4. All right, now we want to check whether 7, want to check for number 1 whether 7 is x is 7. I want to check whether y is another number, something like that. So we can now come and say okay, if x is equal to 7. Now I'm going to pause here and ask a question. Now, why am I using these 3 comparison to check? Why am I not using 2? Why am I using 3?
For equal value and equal
Or
type.
equal.
Awesome, beautiful. Now we are going to use this particular one to experiment why I'm using 3. All right, but before then, let's just go on. Let's continue. So now we have
Sorry, boss. Please,
okay.
he said for equal value and what?
Okay, for equal value and equal type. All right, now if you look at it, right, if we say, let me show you, for instance, we have different data types in JavaScript, right? We have string and we also have numbers. So if you are checking strictly, because you can have 4, that is a string, right? And you can also have 4, that is a number. Because I said it in the class, last class, all right? I said once you put anything inside a quotation, either a double quotation or a single quotation, it has automatically become a string. So here, if we now put this one inside a string, all right, and then we now check type of, type of, we give you the data type. What do we have? You see, we are having a string. Why? Because it's inside a quotation. But immediately we remove this quotation now, all right, what we have is a number. So if you are trying to check, if you want to be strict with your checking, that is just only number you want, it has to be 3. But if you want to check whether it's a number or a string, so far is 7, it should pass, then that's when you use your 2. So now let's confirm something. If we say, okay, we have 7 here, right? Let's now say let z equal to 7. Now x is the number, is a number, z is a string. So let's now compare the 2 and see. Now if we say x equal to z, what do you see? You see it's telling us that it's true. Why? Because it only checks for the value. It doesn't check for the type. It checks the value. What is the value of this 7? What is the value of this 7? Where carry go. But when you use that 3 equal to now, it will check for both the value and the type. Now it will check for the value. Okay, this is 7. This one is 7. Oga never carry go. Man, check first. This one is what? String. This one is number. No, 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 no. They are not the same. So that is the reason why you see I'm using this triple check. So does that answer your question? All right. So let's continue. So now we'll now say, okay, if x equal to 7, console.log x, right? Let's use concatenation, plus is equal to 7. All right. So, okay, let me add space here so that it will be space here. Now, if you look at it, of course, when x is 7, we have a condition here. Obviously, x is equal to 7 because if you look at x here, is 7. So it's going to print out this one. What if in a situation where our x is not 7? Let's say our x is, we want to check whether x is 7, 8, or yes, 7, 8, or 9. So let's say x is 8 now. Of course, you find out that, let me remove this one so that it will not confuse us. So you find out that nothing is going to be displayed. So remember, I'm checking for whether x is 7 or whether x is 8 or whether x is 9. All right. So I can now say, okay, else if x is equal to 8. All right. Do this for me. Console, permit me. Let me copy this one. As a programmer, learn how to copy and paste. Good. So I'll change this one to 8. So you can see in a situation where x is 8, this if, it will check this if, it will not that this if condition is not true. It will not come to this one, else if, it will check again. It will not find out that, okay, this one is actually true. Then this block of code will not be executed. Now, let's now check for our 9. Let's add the one for 9. Else if, and that's another else if, x is equal to 9. All right. Now, I will still paste this code and then I'll change this one to 9. So you can see that because x is 8 and we are checking for 8 here, that's why this one will be executed. Now, in a situation where x is no longer 8 but 9, you now find out that is this block of code, this second else if, that will now be executed. So in a situation where we don't have 8, 9, we don't have 7, we don't have 8, we don't have 9, that's our number is neither 7 nor 8 nor 9. That is where our else statement will now come in. So we can now say, okay, else, since we are just checking for 7, 8, 9, so else, in case what we have is neither 7 nor 8 nor 9, we can now say console.log, all right, x. Let me add my plus sign. Say x is not 7, 8. Okay, let me use comma instead of over 7, 8, nor 9. All right. So now let's say, for instance, we'll now come here and change this one. Let's say we change it to 45. So what do we have? You can see it's telling us 45 is not 7, 8, nor 9. So that is what else if is meant for, checking for more than one particular condition. Now, let's say in a situation where, just like I said, you cannot actually use if all through. You mustn't use else if. You understand? Like this else if, we can actually change all of them to if. Change this one to if, and it's still going to work. Now, if we change this one to 7, you can see 7 is not, okay, where is it? I hope I did not change anything. No. If, okay, 7 is not, there's an issue here. Okay, let me, I'm coming. This 7 now, this one should check for 7. Okay, so let me like remove them from part of being this, and then what is happening? That means, hey, JavaScript have updated. Formally it used to work. Formally, actually, formally it works. That's instead of else if, you can just use if throughout. but it seems they have actually updated the JavaScript engine. Yeah. So just, I think they have updated the JavaScript engine for it not to work, because formally it does work. Yes, it does work. So just like I said, your if checks for condition. If you are checking for more than a single condition, then you bring in your else if, depending on the number. All right. If it's 5, it means you're having 5 else. If it's 5, you have one if, and then the remaining 4 else if. Then else, in case none of the 5 conditions are met, then your else will now come in to cover up for that. So is there any question? Okay, please, Jethro, go on.
Yes, sir. Please, I'll make a plea that you please use should I say a use case when
Okay,
developing a website, maybe when we are setting a password or something to check the if and else if, how it works.
works.
All right.
Okay,
Yes.
yes. Actually, just like I said, I was talking about DOM manipulation, which I think should be the second or third week. So when we get to that, that's when you see how we'll start incorporating all of these things in our HTML and CSS. That's literally in the website we are going to be building. You understand? So for now, we just want you to understand the basics, how it works. And actually, for today class, we are going to look at something that is closely related to a real life scenario. You understand?
All right. Cool. So
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. All right. So that's your else if. Now we have our switch statement. So switch statement is, it works just like if, else if, and else and the rest. All right. But it has its own separate kind of syntax. Now, the most important thing in a switch statement from this code snippet you are seeing is the statement switch, and also the statement case. So the switch takes in a condition, just like how your if statement takes in a condition. That's how your switch too takes in a condition, right? Or a variable, or a condition, anyone. And then the case under each of the switch will now check for each of the condition. All right. So for instance, let's say for this particular code we are seeing now, we are checking for days of the week. All right. And then we made the day to be 2. Sorry, we made the day to be 2. And then we are now checking, okay, for case 1, that's this one now is more like saying, in case this day here is 1, console.log Sunday, because some people take Sunday to be first day of the week, some people take Monday, so whichever, right? Console.log Sunday. Now, one thing about this switch statement is that once you make use of your case, immediately after what you want it to do, make sure you break it. If not, if you don't do that, it's going to check for all the cases. That's it, will check case 1. Even if case 1 is true, it will still continue to case 2 to case 3. So once you are done with that statement, make sure you break it. So next, it will now check, is day 2? It will check, yes, okay, day is 2. So it will now console.log Monday, and then it will now break out of the switch statement. You understand? So, but let's say, for instance, this day here is 3. It will first check, okay, case 1, is day 1? No, it will move to the next case. Is day 2? No, it will move to the next case. Is case 3? It will check, yes, case is 3. Why? Because the day now is 3. And once it's 3, it will now come here and console.log this, and then meet with this break. Now, in a situation where our day is neither 1, nor 2, nor 3, it's going to come to this default. Now, what does this default say? Console.log day not valid. So it will now execute this part of the code default. Just like how if you are using your if and else, after checking with all your if and else if statements, all right, at the end, anyone that does not match any of those conditions, you now come and use else to tackle it. So it's the same role that this default too is playing. So let's look at coding practice with this. All right. So let's say day, let's use that example. Let's say day is 4. All right. And then of course we say we use our switch statement. So our switch statement now we'll be checking for this day, this variable here. Okay, now let's not even use should we use day, should we use day, should we use day? Okay, let's just use day. But you can also use any condition here if you want to. It will still work out. Okay, let's say for instance, let's say day, and then let number equal to, let's say 2. All right, we can decide to check whether day is greater than number. So you can check for any condition, but let me just limit it to the scope of day. So now we are checking for day. So the switch will take the variable day, which is this variable you are checking for. And then under the switch, remember, the next, what are we checking for? We'll start checking for the cases. So we'll check for the first case. We can start with any case. Now we'll start with case 1. All right. Now, this one is checking, is day 1? Now, if day is 1, what do we want it to do? Right? We want it to console.log. Let's assume that first day of the week is Monday. All right. So we'll just print Monday. Sorry. Okay, switch. Okay, sorry. Let me confirm the syntax. Okay. I missed it. So you should have this. Everything should be housed inside the block, the switch block. All right. So for case 1 now, it will print Monday. Let's assume Monday is the first day of the week. All right. So remember what I said. I said we must always use the break statement, but then I will not use the break statement because I want us to just observe something. What is going to happen if we don't use the break statement? So we just move straight to our second case. So case 2, right? And then we'll console. Let me just copy this. Yeah. And then this one, we'll give it Tuesday. All right. Then next, we'll check for case 3. And then we'll name it Wednesday. All right. And then the next one, we have case 4. And then we'll name it Thursday. All right. And then case 5. I think let's stop at case 5. All right. So that we'll know. So Friday. Good. Now, do you see what is happening? We put, okay, let's even put our day as 3. Now we put 3, day as 3. It will first check. Is day 1? No, it will skip it. Is day 2? No, it will skip it. Is day 3? Yes. It will not come here and print Wednesday. Now, if we don't attach, or if you don't attach your break statement, it will continue like that. Now, it will no longer be checking. It will just follow it and execute the remaining of the cases. So that's why you see it's executing Thursday, it's executing Friday, despite the fact what we have here as our day is 3. But it still went ahead to be executing the case 4 and the case 5. And that's why after every case, you have to bring in your break statement to break out of the switch. All right. So now you can see because of we introduced the break statement, it just checked for 3, and 3 is what? Wednesday. Now immediately it executes that of Wednesday. The next thing you can see that it's breaking. It will break out of the switch, and then you not have to be printing case 4, which is Thursday, and also case 5, which is Friday. So always take it at the back of your mind. If you're using a switch statement, you always have your case, what you want it to do, and also your break statement. All right. Then remember your default. That's that default now in case is none of those things. All right. So you have your default. Now default, let's say console.log I am weekend. All right. So in case we don't have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, it means it's going to be Saturday or Sunday, and those days are known as weekends. So let's say, for instance, we have 6 here. Now, 6 is not part of the cases we are checking. We're only checking from 1 to 5. So it means is this default that is now going to be executed, which is what? I am weekend. All right. If we change it to 7, we have the same thing. I am weekend. So is there any, or are there any questions? Okay, go on, please, Jethro.
Okay, sir. This switch statement, it looks like it uses street comparison, right? And then is it the break that is making it to be strict? Because I notice when we don't break it, like
Yes.
when it reaches that particular comparison that is supposed to, like the day, if
Yes.
it's day 7, when it
Yes.
reaches day 7, anything below day 7 starts
Yes.
counting. So is it
Counting.
that the break makes
Yes.
it to be very, very strict, to be coincides like to the particular comparison is trying to do, or what? I don't know.
Yes. Now, what the break does, all right, is to limit what we are checking to that particular case, so that once it executes that case, you know how your program runs is that it runs from left to right, left to right, left to right. So by the time it will check case 1 is day 1, if day is 1, it will not execute what is immediately after or what is under case 1. Then on coming to this place now, once he meets the break statement, it will go out of the switch. It will stop the execution of the switch immediately. So what the break does, just like you say, it confines what you are checking to the particular check itself. If not, just like you say, if you don't put a break, once it checked that, okay, yeah, this one is actually true, is 1, that's how it will keep on executing the rest too. So, but once it meets with this break, it will know that, okay, I'm done with my work. I'm not supposed to do any other thing else. So it will now go out of the switch statement. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very
All
much.
right. You're welcome. So are there any questions? All right. So let's go on. Okay, so we are done with our statements, yeah, conditional statements, which is the if, the else if, the switch statement, all right, and also the else as well. So now we'll be looking at loops. Now, when you talk of loops, loops are what help you to run your code repeatedly. All right. Okay, let's say for instance, I want to count from 1 to 10. You understand? If you look at it, there's a pattern in counting from 1 to 10. What is the pattern? I just need to be adding 1 to my count. So if I say 1, the next number I'm expecting is what? Is 2. The next one is what? 3, 4, till I count to 10. And each of these ones, what am I doing? I'm just adding 1 to it. 1 plus 1, 2. 2 plus 1, 3. 3 plus 1. So let's say I want to count from 1 to 100. Does that mean I need to go to my code? Right? Let's say they said I should count from 1 to 100. Then I'll now come to my code and I'll say 1, 2, or I'll start with let's count. Because let's say I even start with 0 and then come again and say count. Count is 1. I'll now say okay, count is 2, and I say okay. So imagine I'm to count from 1 to 100 and I'm doing it like this. Like, will I go anywhere? I won't be like, imagine it will take a lot of time. All right. So that is where loops come in. So loops help us to execute a block of code repeatedly. All right. Or imagine they're asking me to check inside 100 people, how many of them are from age, let's say 15 to 20. How am I going to do that? It means I have to make use of a loop so that the loop will like keep bringing everybody for me to check. So now in JavaScript, all right, there are different kinds of loop, like majorly 3 loops. We have the for loop, we have the while loop, and we have the do while loop. So let's look at the first one, for loop. Now for the for loop, right, always know that the for loop takes number 1, an initial, number 2, a condition, and number 3, they call it steps, or as you can see from this screenshot, it says loop cycle. All right, so put it at the back of your mind. If you are using a for loop, number 1, you need to declare an initial variable inside the for loop itself, inside the for, as you can see here, right? You declared, sorry for this int. This int is actually what are they calling it? It's actually for C. It's not for Java. Yeah, it was a mistake actually. It's supposed to be let I for Java, but for JavaScript, but we'll look at it. So it's not an issue. All right. So you always declare your initial. So you can see the initial variable here, I, is equal to 0. And then the second one will be the condition. So the condition will always be what the loop will be checking for before it stops, because every loop has a beginning and every loop should have an end. And no loop should be endless. Every loop should have a beginning and every loop should have an end. So now here is like the condition, like what we keep the loop running, what will the loop keep checking until it stops. So that's the condition for it to keep running, right? Then finally, the next one is the increment. Now the increment is targeted at the initial. You get? So if I is 0, it will now come and check, is I less than 10? Yes. In this case, I is 0 and 0 is less than 10. Then the loop will now continue. It will now run. Once it runs, it will now come back. Here, you are seeing I plus plus. So in JavaScript, plus plus is to add 1 to an existing variable. So let's even experiment it. I think I was supposed to tell you in the last class, but I'm sorry I did not. So let's say we have count equal to 0 and want to add 1 to count. So we'll just say count plus plus. Now let's now check the value of count. Let's say console.log count. Now what do you see? You can see that count is now 1, but prior to that time, count is what? Is 0. So this is how you actually add 1 to any existing variable. So that is what is actually happening here. All right, so it will not add 1 to I will no longer be 0. I will now be 1. It will not check, is 1 less than 10? No. Yes, it's less than 10. Then it will continue like that. It will now come back and add another 1 to 1, making it 2. So that's how it will keep on running until it gets to when I is no longer less than 10. And that's when I becomes 10. So once I is no longer less than 10, once this condition is no longer met, this loop is going to end or is going to stop executing. All right. So let's look at the real case example. So please, just like I say, if you have any question along the line, like you don't need me to wait and ask, do you have a question? You can just probably raise up your hand and then I'm going to attend to you. All right. So now let's say we want to count from 0 to 10. You know that kind of thing. You know, olden days movie, before the movie starts, you know, to start counting down 10, 9, 8. So now, but we want to count up, we want to count from 0 to 10. All right, but we'll still come back and now count from 10 to 0. But let's start from 0 to 10. So now remember, what do we say? First, now if you can decide to declare your variable inside of your for loop or outside of it. So I'm going to start by declaring it outside of it. So let's count, right? Now I've declared it to let's count. I will now come and say, okay, for count. Why? Because I've declared count already here. If I don't want to declare count here, what I'm just going to do, I'll remove this one. Then I'll come and declare it here. Let count equal to 0. But if I'm declaring it here, I'll just put let count equal to 0. And then here, I'll just put count and then your semicolon, because you always use semicolon to separate. So this is my initial. All right. The next, remember, what do we say? Our condition. And what do we say we want to count? We say we want to count from 0 to 10. So the condition for it to keep counting is given that our count is less than or equal to 10. Do you remember this comparison operator we talked about last class? Less than or equal to. So it will check once is less than or is equal to 10, it will keep counting. So these are conditions. Then semicolon. Then next, our increment. Remember, we are starting with from 0 and we want to keep 0, 1, 2, 3. So we need to be incrementing it one by one, one by one. So we now have count plus plus. Now, next is what will our loop now run? What we want to do is for it to count from 0 to 10. So we now say, okay, console. So we say console.log. Let's say, let me use string literal, all right, in this one. So we say count is, and then count. Okay. Does anybody have a question? Okay, Fatima, please go on. Please, can you go on? Okay. I think she's good. All right. So let me see. I want to add a new line. All right. Does it work here? So let me experiment something, whether new line work in JavaScript. Beautiful, it works. So but why is it showing this way? Okay, let me this is surprising. Okay, let me try it here and see. I want it to be neat, to come out neat. Okay, beautiful. So now look at it. Let's go over it here. Now we declared our variable here and initialize it with the value 0. Now using our for loop, we say the goal is to count from 0 to 10. All right. Now using our for loop, we now say, okay, the for will always take an initial. Now we have already declared and initialized our variable here. So what we just need to do is come and put the variable here as an initial. And if we don't want to do it this way, just like I said, you can actually take it off here. And then instead here, we are now going to have let count to be equal to 0. All right. So either you initialize it here and bring the variable inside, or you do everything inside of here. It does not matter. It will still work. Now, the next thing I said is our condition. Now, what do we want to count? We want to count from 0 to 10. So it means that our count, which is starting from 0, this for loop should keep on running until the count is less than or equal to 10. So once it gets to less than or equal to 10, after that, it should stop. Because it means that once the count gets to 11, it should stop. So it means we only have from 0 to 10. So this is our condition. Then finally, remember what I said, the steps. We need something to be adding, to be incrementing our value of count, to be changing the value of count. Because imagine that this one is not here, right? What is going to happen? You see, process terminated due to long running script. Why? What you are going to have will be an endless loop, because the value of count will always be 0, and this condition will always be true. So this process will keep on running, and if care is not taken, it can even off your system. If your system is not strong enough, it will just occupy your RAM, and then it will make your system very slow. If not possible, if not careful, to even freeze your system. So that's why we need something to be changing our value of count, so that count will not remain 0, right? So how this is being executed is that for this first one, it will check, okay, count, we initialize it with 0. It will check, is count less than or equal to 10? Is 0 less than or equal to 10? Yes. It will now come back here. It will now print this value, which is what? Count is the value of count. What is the value of count in the beginning? Is 0. So that's why here you are saying count is 0. Then it will now come back. On coming back, it will add 1 to count. So count will now be 1 instead of 0. It will now come back here and check. Is 1 less than or equal to 10? Yes. It will now come back and print this. After printing it, it will now come and add 1 to 1, making it 2. So that's why it will keep on adding, printing, adding, printing until you get to a point where count is now greater than 10. So once count is greater than 10, this for loop will end. It will stop executing immediately. So that is how this your for loop actually works. And it's not limited to just this count. Though. I can decide to say I want to print my name 10 times. All right. And then I also want to print JavaScript 10 times. All right. So are you hearing me? Like, I hope you are hearing me. Okay. All right. So now you can see, let's count how many times, how many JavaScript you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So it's giving us 11. Actually, it's 11 because, 0 is part of it. So this is the 0th one. This is the first one, the second, the third. So if you start counting from 1, you end up with 11 JavaScript. So are there any questions? Okay, please go on, Rufai.
Yeah, that dollar sign. Is it
Yes.
always compulsory we should put it?
Yes, if you are using string literal and
Okay.
you want to like display a variable, the value of a variable, you have to.
Okay.
Yes,
Because
but
I
it's only when you
noticed
are
in this JavaScript you didn't put anything just like dollar. You just put the JavaScript only.
yes, the JavaScript here, I'm using it as a string.
Okay.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
why.
and another thing again is that
Yeah.
actually this one I think is related to the last class that I attended in the morning. When
Oh,
using when declaring constant, like when using that const this thing, is it
yes.
always can you also use it in like
For loop.
should I no not
Okay.
for loop, for this thing oh my god, for something that is not a number, because the example they
Okay.
used for was like constant my age is so, or the my year is was
Okay.
two. So I tried
Oh,
using it for like my name, my this thing is not coming
yeah.
up the same error or something like that.
Okay. You can use constant, all right, to declare anything. Okay, for instance, let's look at this. Let's say const name, all right, and let's say Rufai, right? We can come down and then print the name out. You say console.log name. You can see it will give us name. You understand? The only thing you don't use const for is in a situation where you are planning to change it. For instance, if I mistakenly change this let here to const, look at what is going to happen. It's going to throw an error. Why? Because by saying const, I'm trying to say I don't want the value of count to change. Whereas for our loop to work, it needs the value of count to be changing by adding 1 to it. So in that case, I don't have a choice but to make use of the word let. So does that answer your question? But you can use const
Yeah.
for anything.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, Jethro, go on.
Yes, sir. For that final expression where we are adding 1 to the count,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Can we, and we are using plus plus, that is, we want to add 1. So in
yes.
a case where we want to add maybe 2 or 3
Okay.
for each count, how do we, is it possible we do that?
Beautiful. It's possible. In fact, if
Oh,
I want to add 2 now, it's just for me to remove this place and just do like this. Okay, look at it. You have to do this. What is happening? 0, count less than equal to 10. Okay, sorry. It's plus equal to. It's plus equal to. Now, for you to add, let me add a new line so that it will show us as 1. Now, for you to be adding, to add any number other than 1, even the 1, all right, you can still make use of this. You add plus equal to 1. Now, when you do this is what is happening, all right? Let me show you what is happening here. So let's say we have let num equal to, let's say, let me take it down. Let num equal to 7, all right? Now, I can decide to say, let's say I want to add 10 to it. Instead of saying num equal to num plus 10, because what is happening here is actually num. I'm taking this number, which is 7, I'm adding 10 to it, and then I'm storing everything back inside of number. So instead of doing this, the short form in JavaScript is just to say num plus equal to 10. So what I'm doing here is that I'm taking 10 and I'm adding that 10 to the existing value of number. So in a situation where you are adding more than 1, or you're adding 2 or 3 or 4, it's just for you to come and indicate it. Count plus equal to. So it's more like, okay, this is the number. This plus equal to is more like, okay, this is the number I want to be adding to count. Then you can now give your number. You can even decide to say 5. So does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank God you asked that question. If not, I wouldn't have touched it. At least not now. All right. So any question before we move to while loop? All right. Now, for the while loop, it said the while loop keeps executing the block of code so far the condition remains true. So what while loop does is that it always checks if the condition is true. And unlike the for loop, the while loop only takes the condition. Then depending on what you want, you'll be the one to now state the start, that's the initial, and also the end, that's the final. You understand? All right. So let's look at this code snippet. So it says let end count be 5 and let start count be 0. So now the while loop is now checking is start count less than end count. So far start count is less than end count. It should keep on executing I am a while loop. All right. And then once it executes it, what it should do here, it should now add 1 to start count. Now, if we don't do this, what we are going to have is you know what I said before, an unlimited loop, a loop that does not have end, infinity loop. It will just keep on running, keep on running, keep on running. So that's why we need something to be incrementing this start count so that at some point, this condition is going to return false. So that is while loop for you. So let's say this same example we did for loop, all right? So if we are to use while loop, we are going to say, okay, of course, while loop only takes the condition. Remember, for for loop, it takes the initial, but while loop only takes the condition. So we have to declare our count first and give it the number we want, 0. Now, our while loop will now come in. While, what are we checking? Of course, we want to print from 0 to 10, all right? So we can say, okay, while our count is less than or equal to 10, right? What should it do? It should console.log count for us. All right. Now remember what I told you. Why is it showing us process terminated due to long running script? It's because of this is an infinity loop. Why is it an infinity loop? Count will always be less than or equal to 10 because there's nothing that is actually increasing count or changing count. So in that case, we need something to be changing count for us. So here we cannot decide to say count plus equal to 1. All right. So what are we doing here? This one is still the same thing we're saying count plus plus. Do we get? So count plus plus All right. And then what is going to happen here is that it will check, okay, what is the value of count? 0. It will now come inside this while loop and say, if count is less than or equal to 10, run this. It will now console.log the count. So at the initial point, the value of count is 0. So that's why you see here, it will first console log 0. We can actually break it into a new line by using /n. That's serious. So since this /n, okay, so /n don't have to work here. Okay, let me try something. Let me put the new line separate in his own console.log. Imagine the things did not still work. Just forget about this new line. Let's just continue. So now it will first check count is 0.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You use the /n before writing the count. Will it work that way?
Let's try it now. It not still work. It's probably the thing we want us to. Okay, let me do this and see. All right. Let's try this and see if it's going to work. Okay, yeah, actually it worked. All right. So, but I don't know why it's like this. All right. So this one actually worked. Put the n, that's, and then do this. But all the same, Sha. So this is what is happening here. All right. Count is 0. Thank you for that, Rufai. So count is 0, and then to check. Okay, is count less than or equal to 10? That is 0 less than or equal to 10? Yes, 0 is less than 10. Bam, it will now come here and output the value of count at that time, which is 0. Then coming here, it will now add 1 to count. Count will now be 1. It will now check also, is 1 less than or equal to 10? Yes, it will come here, do it. So that's why it will keep on running until it gets to when count is 11. It will now check, is 11 less than or equal to 10? No, 11 is actually greater than 10. It's not less than 10. So in that case, this is our while loop will go off, or it will cancel. So that is while loop for you. So is there any question before we go on? All right. So now the final one, is that the final one? Okay, yeah. Now the final one under loops, and not final one under to this class. So the final one under loops, which is do while loop, is do while loop. Now what do while loop does is that, unlike for loop and while loop, do while loop, we first execute at least once before it will now start checking. You understand? And is quite fair using do while loop for some things. Okay, for instance, imagine you are going to an airport, of course, and then you need your bag to be checked. Now, in a situation, they can decide to code it in such a way. It will first show you welcome to so and so. Can you please insert your bag in the counter, or can you please drop your bag on the counter? You understand? So it means before they even start checking the bag, they have to tell you first that, okay, drop your bag on the counter. You understand? So in situations like that, you can actually make use of a do while loop where you need the code to run at least once, something to run at least once before you now start your checking. You understand? So let's look at an example with this same one. And just like just like your while loop, do while loop works the same way. The only difference is just that do that is part of it. You understand? So using a do while loop, we can have let x. I know we have been using count, so let's use x. Let's respect x. So let x is equal to 0. We can now say do. Now we now say console.log, I am counting from 1 to 10. Right? Now, the next one, while, remember, is a do while loop. So, and while do what? It checks for a particular condition. So, we'll now check. So far, x is less than or equal to 10, all right, what should you do? It should console.log the value of x for us. So let me use a new line. Let me use string literal. I want us to get used to all of them just in case. So, and then I'm going to use this for my value of x. All right. And then remember what we say. We need to be incrementing it so that we are not going to enter an infinite loop. All right. So here we are going to be counting, adding 1 to x. So we have x plus plus. All right. X. Okay. So do console log, I'm counting from 1 to 10. While x is less than or equal to 10. Yes. Then what should we do? Console.log. Is there an issue here? What is not happening? This is surprising. X plus plus. X is less than or equal to 10. So what is happening? What is happening? Oh, this is surprising. let me check this and see. Okay. This is not supposed to. Counting from 1 to 10. Counting from 1 to 10. Okay. But it's not supposed to. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, that's surprising. Oh, this is quite surprising actually. This is quite surprising because normally they do while loop, right? The do part is supposed to execute just once, and then the while part will keep on executing while at the same time checking for the condition until that condition becomes false, right? But in this case now, the do is even the one executing for that number of times. So I don't know. It's just surprising. All right, no problem. So just know this, and then when we meet in our next class, all right, I'm going to go and rectify this issue, and then I'll let us know in our first class. Although normally the do part is supposed to run for just once, and then the while will keep on running while checking for this. All right. So are there any questions? Because technically this while is not even the only thing the while is doing here is actually just checking. Let me even remove this curly bracket and see. So you can see, right? So it's quite surprising though. So are there any questions? Okay, so let's now even confirm. You know, I told you the do while loop we run at least once. So let's now check in a situation where, let's say x is greater than 10. So you can see that this is what I was trying to say when I say the do while loop runs at least once. So you can see, despite the fact here we are checking if x is greater than 10. Is x greater than 10 here? No, x is not greater than 10. 0 is not greater than 10. But you see that it still runs at least once. So that is what I was saying, that the do while loop actually runs at least once. Yeah. So from this development, I think the do, inside the do, that's where all your code is going to be. While your while is just for checking the condition only. All right. So now you can see, if it were to be if our for loop, it won't work. So how do I know? Now let's try for loop and see. Let me comment out this code, and then let's try for loop for this same code. So we have already declared our x, so x, right? And then x is greater than 10, right? What should you do? Okay, then the condition, I will say x plus plus, Abi. So inside our body, let's say console dot log x. So you can see, did it run? You can see that the code did not run. Why? Because the condition here is not true. X is not greater than 10. So you can see that our for loop did not even run at all. But to confirm whether the for loop is working, we can change this greater than to less than. And you can see that now the thing actually worked. It ran. You understand? But so far the condition is not true. It's not going to run. The same thing with the while loop too. All right. If you do while and you give it this condition, all right, you see the while loop is not going to run. Okay, x, let's say plus plus. Now the while loop is not going to run, but immediately we change this condition to be less than, which will make it to be true. You can see that it actually ran. But you can see for our do while loop, despite the fact the condition is not true, all right, it still ran. You can see it do this, and this is the increment, given that x is greater than 10. 0 is not greater than 10, but yet it went along and execute the code at least one times. But when the condition is now true, which is I said this, sorry, when it's now true, which is x is less than 10, you can see that it will execute everything, either less than or equal to. So you can see that it executed everything. So that's the difference between the two codes. So are there any questions?
Sir, is it because the condition is just used for checking in this do while loop? Is it the reason why the condition is outside the code block? Because I noticed that in for loops and while loops, the conditions expressions are within the code block. But this one is the condition is outside the code block and then the code is still running. Is it because it is only used for checking? That is why we can place it outside the code block.
Okay. Yes, actually, this do while loop, right? Just like I said, if you look at the do has its own code block here. So everything that's going to be executed must be inside the do code block. You understand? Why the while will just be taking care of the condition, checking for the condition. So it's because of even this do. That's why at least this block of code can run once. Because what is going to happen here is that it will check, okay, let x equal to 0, right? Do console.log x. X here is 0. So it will now print 0 here. And then it will now add 1 to the value of x. You understand? Before it will now come here, it will now check, okay, while x is greater than 10, it's not, this one is not true, x is not greater than 10, that will end. You understand? So it's simply because of this do that is going to execute one time before it will even come and start checking. So you can see if we change the initial, if we initialize this one with 1 instead of 0, it's going to print out that 1 because it will run at least once before it will now check. So it does. So do you get it? Do you understand?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Oh, all right. So are there any questions? All right. So now we have the jump statement. All right. Now the jump statement, under jump statement is like, let me not say somebody jump fence, because jumping off fence is attributed to maybe somebody want to steal or something negative though. Yeah. So, but jump statement, what jump statement helps you to do is you can decide to end your code even before the code finish executing, or you can decide to skip a portion of your code. You understand? So that is what simply what jump statement is. So now under your jump statement, we actually have 3 different statements: your break statement, your continue statement, and your return statement. Now, if you talk about the break statement, right? Now, break statement, we'll do more of it when we come to functions, when we are dealing with I say break statement. We look at break statement in switch. We also have break statement in for loop. In our loops, we have our break statement. continue statement too, we have it in our loops. Then return is mostly attributed to functions, but we'll still get to that. So let's look at the first one, break statement. So break statement is used to break or exit out of a loop prematurely. Why I use the word prematurely is not in a negative sense, but in a sense of you can use it to go out of your loop even before your loop finish executing, right? So now let's look at our code. Let's look at for loop, right? Or no, let's not even use, let's use this do while loop. Now let's say sorry, now let's say we want to break out of this loop if x is equal to 5, right? Or let me use for loop so that we'll get used to for loop. So let me use C for count. Let's say, let me start with 1 this time around. All right, so say for C, then when C is less than or equal to 10, all right, then C plus plus, you should keep on adding 1. So now we want it to console.log C. But then we want to do something. What is that thing? We want to check that anytime C is 5, this condition should stop. Like this for loop should stop. We don't want it to count to 10. We want it that once it gets to 5, it should just stop working, or it should go out of the loop, it should exit the loop. So we can now bring in our condition. Do you remember the condition we did? Good. Now what's our condition? We can ask, okay, if our C, what is now our C? If our C is now equal to 5, what do we want it to do? We want it to break. Now, this break statement, which here we look at it, that is part of the what? Jump statement. What it's going to do is that it will make our code jump to the end of our loop. It will stop the loop entirely. So here it will check, okay, C is equal to 1. Yes. The condition is that it should keep on running until C is no longer less than or equal to 10. And for each run, it should keep adding 1 to C. We understand this one already. We don't have issues with this. But now we are not saying, we know that based on this condition that we have supplied, though, C is supposed to keep counting until it's more than 10. But I can't wait. I want it to end immediately C gets to 5. So that is why you see here, immediately C gets to 5, it ended the whole thing. And why it's not printing C is because we actually ended it before we printed out the value of C. But if we want it to print value of C before ending it, what we just need to do is to take this our code back to the top, and then we are going to have 5 printed. But immediately after 5 is printed, it will come here and check, okay, C now is 5. Oh, since C is 5, since this condition now is true, I know what if does is to check for condition that is true. Since now it's true that C is 5, okay, break, and then it will break out of this for loop. So any questions? All right. Okay, so let's go on. All right, so that's the break statement. You can break out of, so far as a loop, right? You can break out of it. And break statement is usually associated with your switch and then your loop statement. And so take note of that. So continue statement. Now, what does continue does? From the word, you say continue. Say we are pause the movie and they come make I go do something. Pause am. Okay, we are continuing. You understand? So what continue does in programming is to jump a step in your programming. It will jump one step and continue in the next one. So it's more like skipping a particular iteration to continue in another iteration. So here, let's look at this our code. This is our code, we use break. So now instead of break, let's now use continue and see what is going to happen. Now, for this one, all right, let's take it to the top and see. Yes, we have to take it to the top. So if you look at what is happening here now, all right, we say once is equal to 5. For break, once we put break here, it will stop counting when it gets to 5. It will just print 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But now, using our continue statement, what we are saying is that once the count C gets to 5, he should not bother. He should just move to the next iteration. So from here, it will move back to this, add 1 to C, making C 6, and then continue with the console log. So that's why here, if you check what we are having here, you're having 1, 2, 3, 4. We are supposed to have 5, but we have used this continue statement to skip 5, and then we now continue 6, 7, 8. Now, by the time we come and we say no, we want to skip 2, you see that what we have here will no longer have 2. Why? Because once C gets to 2, what this continue statement does is that it will now skip that 2 and then continue with the next iteration. So is there any question with the continue statement? All right. So let's look at a return statement. All right. So just like I said, return statement is mostly used to exit functions, right? Despite the fact I don't know, I don't use it on this thing. I don't think it works, but let me try it and see if it works. You see, it doesn't work. But in C, it works in C actually. You can use a return statement to go out of a loop. That's in C programming. I believe some of us are familiar with C programming. But in JavaScript, you can see that it doesn't work. So it only works with function. So take note of that. All right. So I'm going to take it back to what it has been. So now let's say return statement is used to exit a function. You can see it here. It can also be used to return a value upon exiting a function. So in a situation where I want it to just exit the function, I will just use just the word return. But in a situation where I want it to not just exit, but return a value for me while it's exiting, I will use the word return plus the value I want it to return as an output. So that is the two different use case of return. Either you use return on its own to just end the function, or you return a value. You end the function by returning a value. So either of the two. So let's look at an example of this. So let's say we have a function, let's say fn, and count count should I say count days. Let's say this function is going to count days of the week. All right, and then of course it will not have any input, it will not have any parameter. We talked about parameters the last time. Then we have our function body. Now for this function body, we have to use a loop because we're actually counting days. All right, so we have to use a loop. So you can say, okay, let count equal to 1. All right, and then while, let me use while loop this time around. So while C is less than or equal to 7, because we have 7 days, Monday, Tuesday, so that's why I'm using 7. All right, what should you do? It should simply console.log. Let me use string literal here. So we have day and then my C. All right, yeah, I think that's it. Let me see if I can add a new line here. That's if it will even work safe. But then I also want to do something. What do I want to do? I want to, sorry, function. Hey, Rust have finished me. So actually it's not fn, sorry, it's function. So now what I want it to do is that it should return something. That's, let me say, if our C is equal to, let's say I'm trying to check whether it's a Saturday, is a weekend, all right? And if we say 1 is Monday, 2 is Tuesday, that means 6 should be Saturday, all right? If you do it, 1 Monday, 2 Tuesday, 3 Wednesday, 4 Thursday, 5 Friday, 6 Saturday, all right? So if C is equal to 6, I want it to do what? I want it to return. But before it return, I want it to console.log and say it's a Saturday. And then next, I want it to return. So now, of course, it's a function. So just coding it does not mean to work. We also need to do what? To call the function. So who can help us? How can I call this function? This is the function. So how can I call it?
It will be count this.
Beautiful. So count underscore this. Okay, what is this one saying? Process terminated due to long running script. Okay, wait, let me see. Let me try this and see. This serious. Wonderful. Okay, C is 1, C is less than or equal to 7. Oh, so who can tell us where's the problem? There's a problem with this code. Why is the code not running? You know what is happening here is telling us that it means it's an infinity loop. So why are we having an infinity loop? Look at our code. So why are we
Because
having
we are not adding one, or we are not yeah.
Beautiful. So where is it? While if good. So it means inside of this while loop, we have to be incrementing it in a way. So it means we can come here and then say our C. Is it C we use as a variable? Yes. So we can use C++. So what do you see? You can see that once it gets, okay, let me even use just return. So you can see that once it gets to C is equal to 6. As you can see here, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. Once it gets to day 6, because of this return that I return, of course, I'm printing this one first before returning, all right? So because of this return now, that's why it did not run until 7. It stopped at 6. Why? Because I'm actually giving it a condition that once the C, which is our count in this case, is 6, it should actually return. So it will automatically exit from this function. And if we can even decide to say, okay, if it exit at, let's say maybe 3 should be Wednesday, all right, we can simply console.log, we say Wednesday, all right. So once it counts 1, 2, 3, what it does, this return now will make it exit out of the function. But then, of course, we are console logging Wednesday before our return. Just like I say, either you use your normal return to exit or you return a value. So let's say, for instance, I don't just want to return, just exit out of the function. I want to return a value upon the exit of the function. In that case, I can take this, my console log off, and then I'm going to return Wednesday. And then what do you see? You can see that the function now, upon calling the function, it will not just end it when C is equal to 3, but it will also return Wednesday for me upon exiting the function. So any question?
Yes, sir. Can you please do a recap of this function, please? This
Okay, I should do
return, yeah, this return statement, please.
okay, good. Now, if you look at our material, we say return can be used in 2 ways. Either your normal return or return with a value. All right, irrespective of the one you are using, it will exit from your function. That's it will stop the running of your function. You understand? So in a situation where you are using just return, it's going to just stop your function once a condition is being met. But in a situation where you are returning a value, it will still exit the function, but it will return a value upon exiting your function, right? So we now came, we came here, right? And then we did this function, and then we named the function count days. The function is supposed to help us to count a number of days, all right? And then we started with day 1. That's why we say C now is equal to 1. So now we need to count from day 1 to day 7. You understand? And then remember, when you need to do something iteratively, like counting, the first thing that should come to your mind should be loops. So of course, here I'm making use of a while loop, and then I'm giving the loop a condition that so far C is less than or equal to 7. Why? Because number of days we have in a week is 7 days. So it should do what? It should keep on printing the number of days. But here now, I'm not giving it a condition that, yes, so do this. But then, once the count gets to 3, what I want you to do for me, at first, what I want you to do for me is to print that is Wednesday, because Wednesday is the third day. Monday, first day, Tuesday, second day, Wednesday, third day. So I want you to print Wednesday for me. Immediately you print Wednesday, you should move out of the function. So that's why I'm now using return. So what this return does is to go out of, exit this whole function. And that's why here when you see day 1, it counted day 1. The next, it counted day 2. It counted day 3. All right. But when it comes to this one, you now check, okay, C is now 3, obviously. It console.log Wednesday, that's it output Wednesday for us, and then return. This return now, it now exits out of the function. It stopped the execution of the function. Why? Just this return. So that is the first use case. The second use case, you are exiting with a return, but you are exiting with a value. So in that case, I removed this, my console.log, right? I commented it out, and then I want to return that Wednesday. So I'll have Wednesday. So in this case now, I'm still using my return to go out of this function once my count is equal to 3. But in going out, in exiting out of the function, I'm also returning a value called a string called Wednesday. So that's why here we are now having Wednesday. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. So any other question? So you can see where we started. Gradually now we are now combining many things together. Last class we did function. This class we did loops. Now we are combining both function and loops. So let's continue. So that's all concerning our jump statement. All
Okay,
right.
sir. Now,
Yeah.
console.log and return,
Yes.
are they working as, like, are they the same?
Okay. They are not actually the same. Now, what is making it look the same is because of this code editor I'm using. All right. Because both a return statement and console.log statement, it treats it as the same, but they are not entirely the same. Now, let me check. Okay, all of us are still on the call, right? Let me see. JavaScript, permit me to do this. Code online editor. So let's clarify the difference between them. Okay, so is this big enough? All right, good. Okay, let me just put it light mode so that it's going to be. Now, this one is a JavaScript online code editor. All right, so now let's try something. Let's say function, this thing is small. So is it big enough? Okay, so let's say function count days. All right, and then beautiful. So let's say function count days. Yes, and then we have let our count, which is C, equal to 1, right? And then let's say let's not even do the whole code. Let's now say, okay, return C, isn't it? Now let's check something. You know, of course, to execute this function, what do we need to do? We need to call this count days. All right, so let me now call it count days. So let me run this code. Either you use this one or you use the other one at the under. So you can see, is it printing anything?
No, it's
It's not. In fact, let's even copy this code so that it will not be as though I went and wrote Ojoro code. All right, let's even copy this code and paste it, and then let me run it. Now, is it printing anything?
no.
No. Good. It's because of the way this application run.js is working. It treats both return and console log the same. You understand? And that's why you see here, we are just having return, and yes, it's printing it for us. So that is how this application is. But in the ordinary sense, your return will just return the value. It will not print it for you. Now, if we really want to print out this value, in fact, let me run it again so that you see it. You can see there's nothing. All right, okay, it's still even running. Okay, good. You can see it's nothing. All these ones you see is printing day 1, day 2, day 3. It's because of we are using console log here. This is where we are printing the day 1, 2, and 3. So for us to be able to print this one, of course, this function is returning Wednesday. So we can store the function inside a variable. Let's say the result, let result equal to count days. What we are doing now is that we are saying this function is returning Wednesday. So the value Wednesday, we are now storing it inside this our variable result. So for we to now get what this result is, to print it out, we use console.log result. Now, let's run it and see. Now, do you see it? So you can see Wednesday now printed. So this app is actually Ojoro app. It makes everything. It just handle returns and console log the same way. It's just more like making it easier for you. You understand? So you are calling your function, you are seeing what your function is returning. You don't need to console log it. But in ordinary sense, they are not the same. So any other question? Okay. All right. So okay, we have done return. So now let's look at exception handling. I think that should be the last part of it, if I'm not mistaken. Beautiful. Me, I love to write code. Though. I don't used to like story, plenty story. So exception handling. So exception handling, right, is used to handle errors and exception. Now, if you are writing the server side, you know, JavaScript can also be used for back end. It can be used for front end, it can be used for back end. So if you are writing JavaScript for back end, you will be making more use of your exception handling than your if else, all those your if, else, and the rest, because those ones can't handle an error. Now, what do I mean? Okay, let's look at this code. Now, ordinarily, you know, anything divided by 0 is what? Is infinity. So if you take your calculator now and do 1 divided by 0, it will return an error to you. So let's check something here. Let's say, let number equal to, let's say, for instance, 8, right? And then let's say, let result equal to, now let's divide 8 by 0, right? Now let's now print, let's console log result. So you see, this app is even intelligent enough to tell us that is what? Infinity. Now let's try the same thing on that online editor. Right? Then let's run our code. Okay, it's still showing us infinity. Let's no console log it. Let's just run it normal and see. Okay, you see, now you are seeing what is happening. All right. Now let's say in your code, you mistakenly implemented something like this. Of course, you are expecting it to return a result for you. All right. When you console.log, you're expecting like a result, isn't it? But then look at what is now returning to you. It's returning an infinity. Now let's even check what is the type of result, so that we'll be sure the kind of data type is returning to us. You can see. You see that infinity does not have a data type. Let's even try it here. type of result. Okay, you see is a number. All right. Okay, now that means infinity in JavaScript is a number. So put that at the back of your heads. So now, but look at it. Imagine here is giving us infinity, and what we are expecting is a particular number. So in a situation where I'm making use of my if and else statement with something that has to do with this, maybe I created a calculator, and then with something that has to do with this, it means I have to use a condition to handle it specifically, that once what the person is dividing with is 0, it should do so and so. All right, so we can decide to say, okay, let num1 8, let num2 be, let's say, 0. All right, and then we can now say if num1, right, let me put it inside his own bracket, if num1 is divided by 0, right, what should we do? We say console.log it cannot, right, it cannot be divided by 0, right, unless we in particular do something like this to check in particular if this number will in any way be divided by 0. So in that case, even if we come, we now say divided by num2, of course num2 is 0, it will still give us this, it cannot be divided by 0. So instead of we going through this one expecting a result, and then what we are getting is just infinity, which infinity simply means no value. You understand? It's either we go by this way of first checking, or we go by this way of error handling. And I'm just telling you one aspect of one use case of this exception handling, and that's just one use case. There are various use cases, but what I'm trying to say is, if you are coding, most essentially the back end, coding JavaScript for back end, you most at times meet more of your try, catch, and finally than even your if and else if statement, and that's why I included it in your work. So let's look at the first one. Right now, unlike the others where you can use them separately, for your try, you have to use them together. You can use try on its own only, but you can't use catch on its own only. You can't use finally on its own only. They have to always be together. You understand? But you can use try on its own, just on its own, and you can use just try and catch on their own without finally, or combine the three. Yeah, so that's why I see I'm not like separating them, or like the others that I do separate if and the rest. So now let's look at this code. What is happening here? Now I say, you see, try. What are we trying? Let x is equal to 5 divided by 0. Right? And then we are console log. This code will not be executed if an error occurs. So this comment, this console log is not really part of the code, right? It's just trying to explain what is going to happen. Now, of course, 5 cannot divide 0. It will not give you a valid number. What it's going to give you is infinity, and infinity is not a valid number. All right. So in that case, that's where your catch now comes in. What your catch does is to catch any error and then print out the error for you. All right. So catch takes in error automatically. So what happens is that once this try, anything inside this try, once what is returning is an error and not an answer, this catch will be able to pick it up. And then you can now go ahead inside of the catch and console.log the error, so that you really know what is actually happening. And then this finally, just like you remember your switch statement, where you have switch, you have case, and you have default, right? So this finally now, irrespective of whether this code you are trying to run has an error or not, the finally is going to work. Do you get? So that is how this try, catch, and finally works. So let's try it. Let's test it and see. So let's say try. What are we trying? Let's try to divide should we say okay, let's say let result equal to 5 divided by 0. Why you say I'm using something divided by something by 0 is because that's the easiest way to come up with an error. But that does not mean this is the only error you encounter while writing code, but that's one of the easiest error to reproduce, and that's why I say I'm making use of it. So now let result is equal to 5 over 0. So now you can see, okay, you see it's even telling me syntax error, missing catch, or finally clause. So it means you have to always use your try with either your catch in case of an error or your finally to be able to, for it to work. The finally, now irrespective of whether there's an error or not, it will run. The catch, it will only run when there's an error, and you can decide to join all of them, still the same. So now, of course, we are expecting that this one should give us an error. So what should we do? Let's now bring in our catch, right? And then our catch, just like I say, by default, it takes in it mustn't be error like this. So you can decide to use just E if you want. Some code you see them using E, some code you see them using ERR, and some will use the full error. So if you can even use your name, like here now, I can just say Rufai or Jethro. It will still work what we want to do. But I'm just going to use E here. All right. So catch E, and then what are we going to do? What I'm going to do is to console.log this particular error. All right. So what do we have here? What do we have here? What do we have here? Why is this thing not okay? Let me see. Let me try this and see.
So from your slide, the catch uses the error plus. Is it a message or something?
Okay, yes. Okay, that I will speak on that one. All right. So okay, let's still try it. Message and see. So now, why you say I did not talk about this is because we have to do what we call methods, objects, and then from objects we look at assessing object properties. So this error now will be in form of an object where this message is part of the object. All right. So now to get the main message inside of the object, you need to access it using error dot message. Okay, let me show you an example. I don't know why this the error don't want to reproduce, but let me just show you an example. So let's say I have
Yes, sir.
okay.
Like if you try something like instead of five divided by 0,
Yeah.
you try something like 0 divided by 5.
Okay. I think 0 divided by any number is that same number now. I'll be mathematics student. Right? Or let me see. It's as if I saw something. What did I do now that the thing show NAN? I think I did something that the thing was not showing.
You did 0 divided by 0.
Okay. So let me confirm something. I need an error. How can I get an error? Anyways, let me explain the object, what I was trying to say about this, right? The difference between normal E and this one. So this error now comes in form of an object. Now, how do we get an object? An object, example of an object, it's let's say const and student, right? And then we have equal to new object. All right, new object now. Student, now we have a name. Let's say name JavaScript. Is it new object or new OBJ? Let me just cancel this one. Let me object equal to. Okay, good. So we have name and let's say we have what should we use again? Okay, age. Let's just give it any age. Let's say 22. All right, and then name age. Okay, let's just say email. So let's say js@email.com. all right. Okay, so now looking at this is an object, just like I said. This, what are they calling it? This editor, code editor, it just go ahead and print everything for you. So let's say I want to access just one of these things. Let's say I just want to access the name, just the name in this place, right? What I will do is that I'm going to use the name of this object. Of course, the name can be anything. Let me even change the name to student so that it will not be as though. So the name can be anything. So now I have to use the name, which of course is student. Then dot. What am I accessing here? Or what do I want to access here? I want to access the name. So dot name. Then what do you see here? You can see we have JavaScript. If I want to access the age, I will have dot age. See, we have 22. If I want to access just the email, we have dot email. So that is what is actually happening here too. This error that you are seeing, which the catch is taking in as a parameter, the error itself is an object like this with different fields. And one of the field it has is the message field. All right. So in that case, what we are interested in is just the message. We are not interested in all the information the error is carrying. We are just interested in just the message of that error, because containing the message is the main error, what the error is. So that's why to access it, we are now using the e dot message. So do you get it? But don't put your mind more on these objects. I think now third week, right? Is it third or second week we'll do object, so you get to understand it much more better than this. This is serious. How can we reproduce error? Chai. Okay, let me see. Hey. Wonderful. So, but this is how the try and catch actually works. All right, but just I don't know. I'm trying to reproduce the error. I'm not getting what I'm looking for. So you can also add the finally. Yeah, the finally clause. Just like I say, it's not the finally is not always compulsory. But just know that you can either use try and finally, try and catch, or all three of them together. So finally, now we can say console.log. Let's say we are trying to reproduce an error, right? So you can see that irrespective of what we have here, you can see that this finally will always be executed, whether we have 0 divided by 9, or we have maybe 8, or we have maybe 8 divided by 2, and any of that. So this finally will always be executed. So that's for your exception handling. So these three are what I use for exception handling: try, catch, and then finally. All right. So let's even confirm. Let me check my school. I believe you guys made use of my school, right? Is it my school? Sorry, W3 schools. Hey, W3 schools, yes. So let me see if they talked about it. If there's any way we can reproduce try and catch. So any question, like from what we have done so far? Okay, beautiful. So you see what I was telling you. Let me increase this thing. So you see, they say JavaScript will actually create an error object. You understand? With two properties. What are the properties? Name and message. So that's why you see, what we need is not the name of the error. What we need is the message of the error. So to access the message, that's why you need to now use error dot message. So, but just like I said, we'll still come to object proper. So when we come to object, you get to understand more of it. So what do we have here? What do we have here? If you use throw together with rank, actually, I'm trying to see if we can get a code that we to reproduce an error. Okay, from what I'm seeing, it means that we have to be the one to this thing. Oh. It's only the error we throw that is going to pick up as an error. I was thinking it was supposed to catch the error, because while using it on the back end, you don't need to throw any error. You don't need to throw any error. So I was just okay. Okay, so let's try this and see if it's going to work. Let me try this particular error. Now wow. So let's see this one. Although we have not done this that string method. I said we'll do it in by next week. We'll start looking at string and array methods. All right. So let's do this one and see. So what they are trying to do here, all right, is to convert what are they calling it? A number to an uppercase. Now, the uppercase method only works with strings, where it converts every character in the string to uppercase. All right. So let's say result dot to uppercase. Right? And then good. Now, what do you see here? Let me turn off this finally. Let me remove this finally first. Now you can see, let's display just the error. Now, what do you see? You can see that what we are trying to do here, this is a number, and this number is what? 8. Right? Now, we are now trying to convert the number to uppercase. Now, uppercase is a method in JavaScript that's used to convert a string to capital letter. So let's say, for instance, before this code even comes, let's try it and see. Let's say, for instance, we have something like and tie back, right? You know, this is small, this is in lowercase. Now, if you want to convert it to uppercase, you just first to call the to uppercase method. And then look at what has happened. It has changed it from lowercase to an uppercase. So it means the method only works with string. It doesn't work with numbers. But what I'm trying to do here now is to now enforce that method on our number. Of course, what is going to happen is that it's going to throw an error for us. So in throwing that error is this catch that will now handle the error. So the catch will take a parameter called error. This error now will come from this particular block of code, right? And now you can see we have two things here, which is what? Type error, the name. Remember, they say it always has two fields, the name of the error and the message. So this is the name of the error, type error. Now we are displaying everything about the error. That's why we are having both the name and also the what? The error itself, right? So now if I want to print just the name, it's just for me to now do this e dot name. And then you can see it will give me just the name of my error. And if it's the error message, which I should even be interested in, because this one is not telling me anything about my, although yes, it will give me an idea of my error, given that is a type. And when it's a type, I'll know that, okay, that means that's something to do with string, boolean or so. So what I need is the error message. Now, give me the message of my error. Now, what do we see? Result dot to uppercase is not a function. So result dot to uppercase is not a function. See, this error message does not even make sense. It's actually supposed to tell me that this is a string. Result is a string and cannot be so like, but hope you guys understand the try and catch now. Okay, so any question concerning this trans? Sorry, we spent so much time trying to trying to replicate the error. Trying to replicate an error. Yeah. Rufai, hope all is well. This one you are crying. Okay. So this is how. So just like I said, the catch and try, either you use your try and finally together or use your try and catch. Yeah, but it's always advisable to use your try and catch. Why? So that in case your try gives any error, your catch is going to handle the error. So any question? So is there any question from everything we've done before we move to the practical session? I know some people are started doing press up already, getting set. So can we go on? All right. So the first practice, it says task, that's practice 1. Create a variable called number and assign it any integer. So any number of our choice. So we'll come. So we should create a variable. I'll call my own number and then say we should assign.
Yeah, someone is raising his hand.
Okay, who is that? Sorry, I'll just focus on the screen, the main screen. So please, who is that? Okay, please go on, Chuku. Go on with your question. Chuku.
Maybe it's a mistake, sir. Yes.
Okay, no problem. All right. So let number equal to 34, right? Now let's check. What did they say we should not do? Then I say use an if-else block to print whether the number is positive, negative, or 0 using console.log. All right. So now, I wish I can copy this. Can I? I don't think I can. All right. Well, no problem. So now, the first thing they say we should do is to use our if else, and the rest to check whether is a positive, is a negative, or 0. Now, of course, for we to know that is a positive number, it has to be what? Greater than 0, right? When we have a number that is greater than 0, of course, is a positive number. Let me use the short form of positive. Now, when number is less than 0, we say is a what? Is a negative number. That is a minus number. And then finally, 0 is 0. So when number is 0, we say is what? Is actually 0. That's neither positive or negative. Please give me some minutes. So sorry for the interruption. All right. So any question? All right. So now, just like I said, according to the question, if we go back to the question, it says create a variable called number and assign it any integer. So we already know what an integer is. Of course, I've done that. Then I say use an if else block to print whether the number is positive, negative, or 0. So now coming back here, we have already made an analysis that any number that is greater than 0 is termed a positive number. Any number that is less than 0 is termed a negative number. And then any number that is 0, of course, is 0. So to write our code using our if, remember what our if does? It checks for what? Condition. So we say if, now what is our variable name? I'm using number, or let's even shorten it to n. Let me use n. So if n is less than 0, of course, what should we do? Console.log what? Negative. Because less than 0 is a negative number, right? Now remember, we are checking for negative, positive, or what? 0. So it means that we need to use our else if statement. So else if our number is greater than 0, that means what? It should be what? Console.log. It should be what? Positive number, right? And then remember, the final thing we want to check is what? For 0. Now, since what is left, if you look at your numbers, you can either have positive, negative, or so far you are not checking for infinity. So you can have positive, negative, or let's even check for infinity. All right. So let's say now, else if our n is equal to 0. So a question, why am I using 3 equality to check for 0? Why am I not using 2?
Whereas we check for the data type, for the type of if it is string a number, and also if it is equal to that number.
Beautiful. Okay. I think Chuku bed. I don't know.
Yes, you are,
All right.
you are checking for the exchange value. Make sure that the number is not exchanged.
Beautiful. So now, so if it's equal to 0, of course, we'll console.log saying it is 0. And let me use 0 like this. Yes. Then now, remember, we say we're also checking for infinity, right? Then we can now use else, because if a number is not positive, if it's not negative, and it's not 0, definitely the number should be an infinity number. So else, we can now say console.log what? Infinity. So now let's experiment. You can see here, is 34 greater than 0? Yes, it will come and check. Is n, what is n? 34. Is 34 less than 0? No, 34 is not less than 0. So it will not execute this code. It will now come here to now check. Else, is n greater than 0? And n is 34. So is 34 greater than 0? Yes, 34 is greater than 0. Hence, it will execute this code. That's why you are seeing here positive number, just like we have here positive number. All right. So now let's say we change this 34 to -9. What do you see? Negative number. Why? It will check. Is n less than 0? And n in this case is -9. So is -9 less than 0? Of course, -9 is less than 0. So it will go ahead and print negative number. So let's check for 0. Now it will check. N is what? Equal to 0. Is n less than 0? No, 0 is not less than 0. Is n greater than 0? No, 0 is not greater than 0. Is n equal to 0? Yes, 0 is equal to 0. So to go ahead and print this, it is 0. So finally, infinity, at least unlike the way we struggled for our error, we should be able to reproduce infinity, which is what? Any number divided by 0. So let's say 9 divided by 0. All right. So what do we have? You can see JavaScript is a very crazy. Wonderful. So you can see this one now is supposed to give us infinity. Let's even confirm console.log n. You can see it's supposed to give us infinity, but just imagine it's still showing us positive number. Yeah. So that's one disadvantage of JavaScript. But anyways, the advantage outweighs the disadvantage actually. So it means this our check safe is useless. It's as useless as anything. But anyways, we can still make use of this console log. We can say it is not a number or not a number. Let's just say not a number. All right. So here now, it means that if peradventure we went and make use of a string instead of a number, all right, where is this one? N equal to. Is another problem? Positive number. Hey, Kai. JavaScript. It is well. Okay, let me see. Kai. JavaScript. Fear JavaScript too. So you can see this is a string, but then it's still telling us there's a positive number and all of that. The only one I know that it will not work for that way is when we
Because I think that string of 7, why it's showing you a number is because maybe there is a conversion behind, because it's a loose comparison. But when we use 3 equals to let's to, then it will
yes,
give us not a number.
exactly. You know, the problem with positive and negative check is that we're only using less than and greater than. All right, and less than and greater than are not strict, unlike this one. This equal to is strict. That's why I see when we now use string of 0, he is not telling us that it is 0. Instead, he's telling us that it is not a number because we are checking strictly for it. But I don't think less than and greater than checks, they are not strict. So I think so when you people are doing using less than or greater than, be mindful or be careful. You understand? Be careful of what you are accepting as your input. If possible, make sure you pass all your input. You pass them to int. We'll still talk about that. That's how to convert a string to an integer. I think it's to int. Is it to int? Is it a bit to integer? Something like that. Yeah, I can't remember actually. So but I think it's to integer. So you need to convert every input you are getting. So far you really want it to be a number, make sure you pass in all inputs, you convert them to an integer first before you now move ahead and then do whatsoever thing you want to do. So far what you are using to check those numbers is less than and greater than, because this one you can always solve the issue using 3 of it. But for this and this, there's no issue. There's no way you can solve it. You can't do like this. If you do like this, it's error. And you can't, I don't think you can do like this. And I don't think you can do this one. You can do it this way. To say you want to be strict in checking. I don't think so. So any question concerning this block of this code we have written? Is there any question? All right. Okay, so let's look at the second question. It says create a variable called day and assign it the name of any day, right? So today is Wednesday. We can actually assign it Wednesday. It's a use a switch statement to print whether the day is a weekend, a weekday, or weekend. So first of all, they say we should create a variable, right? Let day. We should call it day, isn't it? And this day now, we should give it the name of any day. So let's say I'll give mine Wednesday. All right. Then they now say using switch statement. All right. They say use a switch statement to print whether the day is a weekday or weekend. So we all know that from Monday to Friday is a weekday. Saturday and Sundays are weekends. All right. So using switch statement, we say switch. What are we checking for? We are checking for this variable here, which is day, right? And then remember, once you are making use of switch, you make use of your case. So case, what are we looking for? So if our case is Monday, what should you do? Console.log weekday. That is a weekday. All right. So what do we do next after this console.log? Should we go to the next case or we should do something? What should we do?
Let's break it.
So why are we breaking?
So that it will enable us to still call another case.
Beautiful.
If I'm right.
So now the next case we'll check for Tuesday. Permit me to copy. Just like I said, as a programmer, learn how to copy and paste. In fact, I can. Okay. All right. So we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then finally Sunday. Right? Then remember our default. In fact, in case this thing did not meet up to any of them, we can say console.log day is invalid. All right. So now let's start changing. Monday, this should be Tuesday. This, okay, Tuesday, this should be Wednesday. This should be Thursday. This should be Friday. This should be Saturday. And then finally, this should be Sunday. So now, let's check. Wednesday, it will not come here and check. What is the variable we want to check? Is day. So each of these cases will now embody each of the days we are checking for. So we are checking for Monday, Tuesday down to Sunday, all right? And for Monday to Friday, all our weekdays. From Saturday, but Saturday and Sunday are weekends, right? Sorry, I need to change this. Weekend. Then this also. Weekend. All right. So now, of course, Wednesday. What's Wednesday? If you check, Wednesday is a weekday. This one, if we change it to Monday, it will still give us a weekday. Okay, what if we change it to Sunday? Of course, Sunday is a weekend. What if we change it to day? Day is invalid because day is not among the days. We have Monday down to Sundays. We don't have day. Day is not among them. So day is invalid. Now, let me ask a question. Now, I want to check for Monday. Why is it showing me that day is invalid? Despite the fact I'm checking for Monday here, and here, true, I have Monday here. So why is this still showing me day is invalid?
Is it because it is case sensitive?
Perfect. So if you remember the first class we had on variables, we said variables in both variables, right, and values in JavaScript are case sensitive. All right. So here that we are having Monday, this one is starting with an uppercase M, but this one, everything is a lowercase. So if you are writing a program to avoid something like this, it's just like Facebook or other platform, you are trying to create an account. There are people that will just decide to use all their names small letter. There are people that can decide to use all their name capital letter. And there are people that can decide to use this normal way, where the initial character is a capital letter and the rest are small letter. So to solve such issue, is always best, right, to always convert whatsoever thing you are getting here to a particular standard and use that standard in your code. So I can decide to say my day will always be converted to uppercase. We made use of uppercase. Okay, let's say to lowercase, because there's to uppercase, there's to lowercase. So just like I say, all these are string method, which we are going to treat next week. You understand? So to lowercase. So now it means that every day that will be passed into here will always be converted to a lowercase. So even if like maybe N here is capital letter, Y here is capital letter, What I just need to do here is to convert all these my checks to a small case. Tuesday, small letter S, small letter S, small letter F, small letter T, small letter W. All right. So is this thing really working? Wait, permit me, let me check. Let's confirm console.log. Okay. I just remember that it's create a new variable. So let new day, right, be equal to day dot to lowercase. So here, what we are going to have here is new day. So now, what did I do here? Very easy. I took day here, and what I did was to convert day to lowercase. So irrespective of whether I have a capital letter, irrespective of where the capital letter is, or if even all of them are capital letters, right? This to lowercase will help me to convert everything to small letter. And then I'm now taking it and storing it inside another variable. Of course, I can't redeclare day again. It will cause an error. The only thing I can do again is just to do this, right? And then change this one to day. So either you create a new variable and store this one inside, or you redeclare, or after declaring this one, you change it because you are using the word let. So it means that you can always change the value of your day. And then here, I'm not changing my value of day from whatsoever thing is going to be entered here to everything lowercase. So even if I come here now and I say Tuesday, all in capital letter, this one will help me to change it to lowercase. And then in checking, it will be able to meet up to my Tuesday here, which is also in lower case. So are there any questions? Any question? Just like I said, very soon myself, I'll soon raise up my hand and say, I want to learn. All right, so that's practice 1 and practice 2. So practice 3 now, right? In fact, I'm not going to do number 3. When I go do one. It's a write a for loop that prints numbers from 1 to 10. Imagine, we have even done it. Use console.log to print each number in the loop. So should we still do it, or we should move to the next one? All right. So let's move to the next one. It says, create a variable called count and initialize it to 1. Okay, David, should we do it?
Hello.
Yes.
Please let's do it.
Okay, I should do it, right?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So let's do it. So let's read the question one more time. It says, write a for loop. Of course, we are familiar with for loop that prints numbers from 1 to 10. All right. So now we are going to have, remember what we say about for loop. It always takes an initial. Next, it takes a condition. And then finally, it takes the steps. That's the increment. All right. Good. Now, it depends on whether you want to initialize it outside of the for or inside of it. It's still the same thing. So for, we can say count. Since we want to do it inside, we are going to declare it inside. Let count equal to 0. Did they say from 0 to 10 or from 1 to 10? Okay, 1 to 10. So it means we are supposed to start from 1, not 0. So equal to 1. And then since we are counting to 10, it means count. It should keep on running. Our for loop should keep on running until the count is less than or equal to 10. And then finally, it should be adding 1 to the count. Plus. All right. Or just like I said, if you want it to be counting in 2 or 3, you can just use plus equal to the number. So, but me want it to be counting in 1, 1. So I'll just leave it like this. Plus equal to 1. Yes. Or plus. That's for 1. Next, I'm going to have my body. That's my for loop body. Now, what did they say? They said we should console.log. We should print out each of the numbers. So I'm printing out my count. right? So now if you look at what we have here, we have actually counted from 1 to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is our code. So any question?
Not at all. We are good to go.
Okay. Good to go, good to go. Correct.
Good to go, sir.
All right, so let's look at the fourth practice. So it says create a variable called count, initialize it to 1, use a while loop to print the multiplication table of 5. Now, literally, I will cancel out that table, right? So that we'll not have issues. Because if you want to print a multiplication table, it means we have to do it in form of a pattern. Which of course, if I say man start now, more no go confused for road. It's not as if it's impossible. It's possible, yes, but let's not go and start bringing in confusion here. So use a while loop to print the multiplication table of 5. So what they are saying is that we should use while loop and do from 5 times 1 down to 5 times 10. So that means we are multiplying 5. We'll first multiply with 1, multiply with 2, multiply with 3, multiply with 4, like that until it gets to 10. All right. So now we'll go back to our code editor. Now, what should we use? Should we use a for loop or should we use a while loop or a do while loop?
Let's use while and do while to do
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay. So any other person, those in support shout hi. Those again say nay.
Hi. The highs have it.
Okay. So now we say while. Now remember, before you even use your while loop, we need to first declare our initial. All right. So we have let count, right, equal to 1. And then next, for our while loop, while count is less than or equal to 10. All right. What should it do? Now, we don't want anything to affect this count. So we can, it depends. We don't want anything to do this count. And we want our count like this. All right. So we can say const norm. Now, who can tell me why do I declare this norm as const? Why do I declare it as a constant? And why do I declare this count using let?
I think because it's that number that I want to be using and multiply. So it's the count that will be changing, not the number that will be changing.
Beautiful. So now, if I like, I can decide to create another variable result. That's where we are going to be storing the result of our multiplication, right? If I like, I can just do it. And if you like, you can just leave it. It's not compulsory per se. Either you create it outside of the loop or inside of the loop. So now I'll just take this one out. Now remember, the same multiplication. All right. So what can we do? It means what we are expecting is something like this: 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, continuously like that. So how do we go about this? Of course, we already know that to multiply, we have done arithmetic operators, right? Which, of course, multiplication is what? Is asterisk. All right. So now we can now say, okay, console.log. Now we are going to use our string literal. Yes. So console.log what? Where is this bracket? Okay. Yes. Our norm. Our norm is constant. Multiply by our what? Our count. Isn't it? Equal to, what are we going to be having? We are going to have norm multiplied by what? Where's the okay? Asterisk multiply by count, right? And then who can tell me why is it showing us this error? Process terminated due to long. Why is there an infinity loop? Why are we having an infinity loop here?
Is it because we are not breaking it, or it's either we are not breaking it or we are not adding
You're not adding one.
Beautiful. Beautiful. A good one, Jetro and Chuku. So it's because we are not incrementing our count. Because at the stance now, count will always be less than or equal to 10. All right. So now I'm going to go on and be incrementing count by 1. So now what do we have here? Let me add a new line so that it's going to be visible. I hope it works. Beautiful. Now you can see 5 times 1, 5, 5 times 2, 10, 5 times. I know some of us used to chop more then. It's cool. 5 times, 5 times. So you can see we're able to achieve what we want. All right. 5 times 1, 5, 5 times 2, 10, 5 times 3, 15. So if we look at this part, let's look at this part carefully. I believe we all understand what are they calling it? We all understand string literals, right? So why I'm bringing this $sign and putting the number inside this open and close bracket is because it's the value of num that I need and not the variable. So this X is your normal X, you know your X, small letter X on your keyboard. That's what is it. What I'm trying to do is to mimic how we normally use times in our exercise book, right? So that's why I'm bringing this X to serve as times. This one will always be constant, which is the 5. This count will be the one changing. 1, 2, 3. So this one will be displayed as 5 times 1, 5 times 2, depending on what the count is, since num will always be 5. Now, equal to, this is where the real calculation is now going on. Now, what am I doing? I'm multiplying my num by five times 1. Next, this plus plus will now add 1 to the count, making the count to become 2. So the next, it will now go again, 5 times the next one, 2. So that's how it will keep on going until it gets to the point where count is now greater than 10. There is going to stop because the instruction is to do a multiplication table from 1 to 10. So any question before we now do that of the do? Okay, Jethro, please go on.
Yes, can we just, instead of doing number times count, can we just console.log number asterisk count, like directly? Will it
Yes.
work, or we?
No, we don't. This one is just, you see this part we added here like this. It's just to make it show like this, that 5 times 1, 5 times 2. We can exclude it and just bring up our answer directly. You understand? And we can even remove it from the string literal, right? And just have it like this. It's still going to work. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thanks.
So any other question before we rework it in do while loop? Okay, so let me comment out this one. So if you guys remembered, where we say do while loop, it will run at least once, all right? And the syntax is do. Now, according to Ninjaman, you say, okay, what do you want to make her do? Okay, what I want to make you do be say console.log. Let's just console.log it directly, right? So console.log num multiply by what? Multiply by count. Isn't it? Now, while, remember, our while will check for the condition. Now, what is the condition? So far count is less than or equal to 10. Okay. So now, why is he showing us this? Why is this error coming up?
We are not incrementing or decrement.
Beautiful. So I'll come here and then increment. So you can see what we have: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, and 50. So is there any question?
Sarah, what's now really the difference between the while loop and the do while loop?
Beautiful. Now, the do while loop tests your code at least one times. So even if this condition is not true, the do while loop will run one times. But for while loop, if the condition is not true, it will not run. So for instance, this one now, of course, count here because we made count to be 1. So obviously, 1 is less than or equal to 10. In a situation where we are now checking whether 1 is greater than 10, is 1 greater than 10 true? No, it's not true. 10 is greater than 1. But you can see that it still runs the code at least one times. It still took num, which is 1, num, which is 5, and count, which is 1, and did 5 times 1, which is 5. So it run the code at least one times before checking for the condition. So do while we always run your code first before checking for condition. If it meets the condition, it will continue. If it doesn't, it will stop. But while loop, we not even run it. It will first check for the condition, gone, to make sure the condition is true before it will run it. For loop too, the same thing. It will first check for the condition to make sure it's working before it run it. So any question? All right.
Okay, did we treat about for off loop and for in loop?
You say?
Did we treat
Okay.
about for off and for in loop?
Beautiful. Now, the reason why I did not talk about for in and for off is that one deals more of array and objects, right? And you know we have not done arrays. So you see arrays, object, array method, string method, and all the other ES6, ECMAScript 6 kind of code. That's what we'll be looking at next week. Is it next week? I think that's next week. So that's when we'll now cover all of this. So that's why I say I did not talk anything about for in or for off. So do you get that? Hope I'm clear, Chuku.
I
You know,
get.
you know our president say baby steps of pain. So let's be doing baby steps of JavaScript before we now hit the ground running.
That is it, though. That is it. I give you.
Honestly. All right. So let's look at okay. I think we just finished practice 4, right? So let's look at practice 5. So it says declare and initialize a number with value 0. Yes. Write a do while loop that checks if that number is greater than 10. Keep incrementing the number by 1 and use console.log to print the number. Thank God. I will not do this one for you people. You will go and do it. Practice 5. Don't worry, you still have your questions. I'll just pick this practice 5 and add it there. So 5 is for you. So let's look at 6. But I believe it's something we can attempt. I think we have done something like this. This one, everybody don't keep quiet like this. Okay. So practice 6. It says write a for loop that prints number from 1 to 10. Use a break statement to exit the loop when the number 5 is reached. Use console.log to print each number. I think we have done exactly something like this too while treating loops. Yes, we have done something like this where we're talking about the break returning with a particular number. So you guys will attempt this. So 5 and 6, let me even write it down so that I will not forget. All right, so 7, it says write a for loop that prints only even numbers between 1 and 20. Use a continue statement to skip odd numbers. I think this second one. Okay, yes. To skip odd numbers. So it means that what we are using to skip odd numbers is the continue statement. all right? Because without number 2 task, we can still do number 1. But this time around, they want us to use the continue statement to execute number 1, all right? So you say print each even number using console.log. So let's look at this 7. So first of all, we have to even check how can we recognize an even number and how can we recognize an odd number. So quickly, our time is fast spent, sorry. So let's quickly look at this. So of course, what is an odd number? Okay, mathematicians in the house, what is an odd number? And what is an even number? So somebody should just help us, like briefly.
1, 3,
Okay, beautiful. So what of
5,
even number?
2, 4, 6, 8.
Okay, that's good. See wisdom. All right. So now, if you talk of an odd number, just like she rightly said, 1, 3. So you find out that, if you are thinking about odd number, even number, you have to also think, if you are dealing with programming, you have to think of it in a mathematical way. All right. So in a mathematical way that is consistent with what an odd and even number is, which is 1, 3, and the rest, and also 2, 4, you find out that every even number is divisible by 2. That's when I come, I say 4 divided by 2. It will give me what? 2, without a remainder. So if you remember in our first class where we talked about operators, right? We talked about an operator that finds the remainder instead of the division. So what is that operator? Can somebody remind us?
Modulus operator.
Very good. Very good. So we have the modulus, all right? Thank you, Chukwu and Jethro. So we have the modulus, right? So now for this one, if I say 4 divided by 2, of course, it will give us an answer. But when I say 4 modulus 2, you see it will give us 0. If I put 6, it will still give us 0. If I put 8, so far that number is an even number. If it's being divided, it will always, an even number is a number that when you divide it by 2, you will not have a remainder. You always have 0 as the remainder because there's literally no remainder. But for an odd number, there will always be a remainder of what? Of 1. So if we say like 3 modulus 2, you see 1. If we say 1 modulus 2, it's still 1. If we say 7 modulus 2, is still 1. It will always give us remainder 1 because 7 divided by 2, the 2 will always go 3 times, which is what? 6. So we are still left with 1. So always put that in the back of your mind. For even numbers, right? N divided by modulus 2 will always give you 0. That's even number. Why for odd number? When you say odd number modulus 2, it will always return 1. So at least we now have this one covered up. So back to our question. It says, write a for loop that only, between 1 and 20. Use a continue statement to skip the odd numbers. So it means we can only skip the odd numbers with a continue statement. So for that now, we'll now come, of course, what should we use? Should we use a for? Should we use an if? What should we use? For? Should we use a while? Should we use a do while? Which one should we use? Okay, nobody.
The question said 4, so let's use 4.
Okay. All right. So let's follow the question. So now, what did he say we should start? Is it from 0 or from 1? Okay, from 1 to 20. Beautiful. So it means let I, now I'm going to start using I. People are used to using I for loops. So I intentionally refuse to use I all through the example so that you get used to other things. So let I equal to, of course, 1. That's the initial. The condition, provided I is less than or equal to 20, because they say we should check from 1 to 20. Then finally, I what? Plus. Now, what do we say about continue? They say we should use continue to do what? They say use a continue statement to skip odd numbers, right? So now we know that for odd numbers, when you do number modulus 2, it always return 1. So we are now going to say, okay, if our I modulus 2 is equal to 0, sorry, it's odd number we want to skip, right? Is equal to 1. So we are saying if we find I mod for every number that is coming in 1, 2, 3, 4, it should check if the modulus of 2 of that number is equal to 1, because we have confirmed that any number modulus 2 that returns 1 is always an odd number. What should it do? It should continue. Right? Now, we can now go ahead. Remember, the last part of the question or the task, it says what? Print each even number. So it means the only number that we should be expecting that is not going to be skipped will be the even numbers. So console.log, here I'm going to now print I. So is our code correct or not?
Very correct, sir.
Correct. Beautiful. So any question? Okay. Tabat, are you Taibat? Are you raising up your hand?
No, I am not. I'm just clapping.
Okay. Beautiful. All right. So, but hope we understand what this code is doing in particular. Okay, beautiful. So let's quickly. I think time is fast spent. Let me see it. You know, we tried.
Gideon, Mr. Gideon,
Yes.
Mr. Gideon, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Your time is already up already,
Yes,
sir.
it's off. Yes. So number 8, I will reproduce the question, right? And add it to the question you people are supposed to solve. 8, 9, and 10 also will be part of the questions you people are going to solve. All right. So in case you have any problem, you can always reach out to the I believe the mentors, the other mentors. You can reach out to them. They always give you at least an hint of what you need. All right. So before any other question, I think we are done. Yeah.
If they don't have question, bombard them with what? With assignments, plenty assignments.
I don't share the last on Tuesday is 10. Today is 20. Today's class assignment is
Make
20.
it 30, please. God, please make
30.
it 30.
No
I'm telling
problem.
you, 30.
No problem.
Everybody, did we do anything wrong? This is why I said they should go.
But you guys don't have the question to ask. Like that question to ask, so no problem.
You know,
More
get
assignment for you
you,
guys. Ask your
you know, get
question,
light
more
to
assignment for you guys.
you know, get light to.
All right. So thank you, everybody. All right.
Okay, no
Thanks
problem.
for your
Thank you,
time.
Mr.
Yeah.
You're
Gideon.
welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Gideon. See you next week, same time, same station.
Exactly. So take care,
Okay,
everybody.
no problem. Take care.
Thank
Okay.